What is up, chat? It's your boy Hobo Drobo back with some Kingdom Rush battles. And today we have some Hood Classic matches against my fellow American here, Castlefan, and some 4K Stadium matches. Castlefan is using Escalt and I'm using Barasad for an epic duel of dragons. I've seen some debate online on which dragon is the best, and I think it's safe to say that Escalt is number 1, with Barasad not being too far behind at number 2, and then Ashbite at number 3. Now, at the time, both of us were in the top 10 for US, and I believe Castlefan has actually climbed up to top 3 as of currently for the US, so this is some high stadium gameplay. I actually lost to Castlefan twice before this match that you're seeing right here, and this third match doesn't end up going my way either, but you'll see in the fourth match I make some adjustments and you'll just have to watch to see the outcome, which may cause you to think that I won that match, but you never know. I could throw a curveball. But what I really want to focus on today here is that Archmage Dissipate upgrade. A lot of people have been saying that that thing is broken, and I completely agree. I mean, obviously I've been using it in most of my videos now. So I have some really close moments that I'm actually going to slow down and show you how much of a split-second decision it was that could have determined the entire match overall. In this match, I struggle a lot with those goblin balloons, and I think looking back, I would have taken my own advice after the fact and definitely gotten more artillery down. That way they could deal with those high HP troops on the ground, and that would allow my barbarians the space to be able to take out those balloons as they're going through instead of being distracted on the ground troops. Escalt is such a good counter to my strategy though, because he freezes my troops and he freezes my dragon just like that, and it's so annoying because if I'm not careful, my Barasad will just die to something like a dragon because he'll be frozen and I can't macro him out of the way. And you'll see in the second match, I do some absolutely crazy Hall of Fame work on my macroing for Barasad, and that's something that needs to be studied by everybody because I promise you in these kind of matchups, that small macroing is going to make the difference. In this match, like I was saying before, I unfortunately just had a terrible setup at the bottom. I think if that Archmage was an artillery instead, I would have been able to deal with those goblin balloons much easier and it wouldn't have been a problem whatsoever. I've been seeing a lot of debate on the RNG of boosters as well, and I completely agree that boosters aren't in a perfect state right now, but I also don't think they're as bad as people make them out to be. I think the big thing is that, you know, if you get a dragon sent your way and you don't have anything to send back their way, you feel like you're at an immediate disadvantage. And I think one way they could do it is, instead of giving people the exact same boosters every round, maybe you could offer one air troop, one ground troop, and then one other type of booster, so that way there's a little bit variety, but you know you're at least getting something similar. And that way I think, you know, it'd give people the freedom to then pick what is going to counter their opponent's deck, rather than just picking the best booster on the board. There are definitely some boosters that could be slightly tweaked, definitely the HP of the dragon, but even since discovering the artillery plus barbarian strategy, I feel like I've been able to deal with that a lot easier now, and I wish I could go back in those previous matches where I didn't try that and see if I have the same outcome, because again, like, there's a lot of people complaining about them, but is it a skill issue or is it a balance issue? And that I'm not 100% sure on, but it is difficult to prepare for every situation possible. I don't think the overall balance of the game is that bad when it comes to being actually in a match, but I do agree that the free-to-play progression could be a lot better, and I think they need to be giving free-to-play players a lot more gold. And while yeah, that's easy for me to say while I'm using Barasad here, I do get countered by Escalt a lot. So from my end, I actually find it more entertaining when I'm going up against an Escalt, because I do feel like it's going to be more challenging to win the match compared to just farming bots for like 4 to 5 hours straight, which is what I was doing yesterday, and I have no footage from yesterday, so I don't know what I'm going to do for next video, but I'll try and find something. I haven't been able to play as much today specifically, so I've definitely lost trophies compared to the overall global rankings, and maybe that'll help me find some more player matches. I had a great match against Ike in the top 100 for US Global, but the footage was so choppy because we were lagging and then we ended up crashing, so there was no point in using the footage anymore. Now, I had a speech prepared about motivation and not giving up, but considering I'm a pay-to-win player and I'm a cheeky bastard over here using Barasad, I do think that people would just line up with pitchforks. Next thing I know, the Hobo Drobo cave's getting raided and I got nothing left to my name. But I still want to tell you guys that if you are free to play and you are losing motivation to play the game, please don't give up. I want to give Ironhide some credit here because it's their first real multiplayer game, and I don't think people realize how hard it is to balance something like this, specifically on the progression side. Let's say the progression was a lot better and it was actually the opposite, where people were getting too much gold and too many cards, and by the end of week 1 or 2, almost everybody was maxed out on their cards, that would leave no room for progression overall. And when it comes to games like Clash Royale and Clash of Clans, that's what the entire game is. But what makes that okay to me in the long run, and a lot of Clash Royale players will say this, is that once you hit max, there's no difference between a free-to-play player and a pay-to-win player. And while I don't think it was a good thing for Ironhide to lock Necromancer behind a paywall without being able to get it free to play, even though it is coming later, I think they'll fix that mistake and not do that again, hopefully. And I also think that they'll start fixing a lot of the free to play progression, making it a little bit easier, but they can't go overboard and give people too much, otherwise they would just stop playing. But if you think that kind of gameplay progression is inherently bad because it does promote a lot of pay to win and it does take advantage of people when they feel like they're not winning so that they go and buy chests, I completely understand that. I don't mind putting in some money here and there, but I don't want to go overboard spending hundreds of dollars because then that takes a fun out of just unlocking new stuff. That Ashbite pack though was staring at my soul. And even though he's not the best dragon, so I don't really think it would be that pay to win, I think it'd be cool to get it just to see what we could do with him for content. Let's focus back on this match though, because it's about to get heated. And right here you can see this Archmage at the bottom left. I am preparing to do an insane Dissipate teleport move, where I'm obviously not going to be able to defend everything, but maybe, just maybe, if I can teleport the balloon or a high HP troop to the other side of the board, it can catch him off guard and I can win the match. You can see right here that I suck. And me being 1 to 2 seconds too early on that upgrade right there, unfortunately teleported those smaller enemies instead of the bigger ones, which could have made it so that I'd actually defend this wave and then carry on with the match. But that doesn't end up happening, and I do make that mistake, so I end up dropping what is a third match here to Castlefan in a row. I just didn't want to show the other 2 matches because it wasn't as close. I got rolled both of those times as well, and now I'm super salty because I lost to the same guy 3 times in a row. But let's jump right back into it, into a 4th match that I ended up playing against him a couple hours later. Man, was that last match painful. Just looking back at the VOD review again, like, I'm still salty to this day that I didn't win that match. We're going to start this match with our normal setup though, putting the Barracks in the back. And this time, I'm definitely going to get that artillery down, which I think ends up helping a lot just for the longevity of the match. But I don't think it was necessarily what won me the match. I definitely think the Archmage is what won me it. And yes, spoiler, I did win the match. But you'll see how close it was, and you'll see that combined with all the stalling power that my deck has, since I was able to kill the dragon and survive long enough, he just wasn't able to deal with the swarm that I ended up sending his way from that Archmage Dissipate. I'll bet you can imagine what I was thinking when this match started though. I'm facing Castlefan again, a top 10 US player. I'm going against a dragon in round 1, and on top of that he has an Escalt, which is a better dragon than mine. So I was not feeling good against this match. Although I do like this map, and it works really well with my strategy, so I did have a glimmer of hope that maybe I could pull through. I knew I had that trick up my sleeve still with that Archmage, and I figured maybe if I could actually pull it off this time, that I'd have a chance. Thankfully, the Ironhide gods sent me some good boosters this round, because I was getting straight slop before that. I saw someone say use Vines instead of Icy Zone, I believe, but I think what makes Icy Zone so good is that the cooldown between the Icy Zone and the stun is almost perfect to where you can basically line them up right next to each other. And you can see I do that a lot, especially on this map where that choke point is, and it's not perfect, but combine that with the Thunder and combine that with the stalling power of Barrisad and a few Barbarians, and you can basically permastall things. If I can somehow get lucky and get Escalt, it's going to make this deck even better because he's an Ice Dragon. I mean, put 2 and 2 together. Nobody is going to want the smoke from Hobo Drobo. But as you can see here, a huge group of enemies coming, and I'm really afraid here about that Escalt's freezing ability. You can see that the dragon locks onto Barrisad, and I have to be very careful. And these are specifically the macros I'm talking about. Not this one, but a little bit later on. But you can see I'm letting Barrisad have some downtime because I am afraid of that Escalt ability. I don't know the second cooldown on it, and I probably should learn that because it'd make it a lot better moving forward for me to be able to counter it and macro him even better than I did this time. But I think I did a pretty good job here, and just pay very close attention of how much I'm moving Barrisad. I think people don't understand how important that is to his character. I'm pretty reasonable, and I do think that Barrisad is pay to win, but I don't think that he's just set it and forget it pay to win. You still need to have some skill to be able to utilize him, because he has a few abilities like I was talking about in my earlier videos, when he's buffing the opponent's troops going through, and he's doing his roar. sometimes that's just not the abilities that you want him to do, and it'll actually mess up your strategy and then can mess up your timing overall. Can't tell you how many times I've missed out on a gold advantage because Barasat will push an enemy out of the zone where a tower is hitting them because they end up walking away. Even with those frustrations though, I feel like Barasat is definitely the strongest out of all my heroes, and I do like using Hacksaw because of his one-shot potential, but it's just not as good as Barasat, and I hate to admit it because I would definitely be using Hacksaw a lot more. That being said though, I actually think Hacksaw is slightly better than Allura Wintersong, and the only reason I think that is because Allura can die so easily, so unless you have a strategy where like you have paladins tanking those musketeer shots, if your opponent has a musketeer and you have Allura, you're almost cooked every time. And I don't think there's a lot of hard counters in this game, but that's definitely one of them. One of the biggest tips though I can give people on this game is don't be afraid to sell towers. I think people are way too afraid of losing out on their gold, and they're not going to sell the tower when there could clearly be a different, better option there. And you'll see in my gameplay, I sell towers all the time. Like, I'm usually selling at least 2 to 3 towers a game, depending on what my early game strategy is and what my late game strategy is. But there are a lot of maps where I don't have to do that, and those end up working better with my strategy. It's just, you know, it can depend on what boosters they're sending your way as well. This match you can start to see with what I'm saying with all those artillery though. It's really important to just get that raw damage down before you get the gimmick of that Archmage Dissipate, and I think that's something that I was trolling with in a lot of my earlier matches. I was just so focused on getting that Dissipate upgrade because I knew it was going to win me the match that I wasn't focused on surviving on my own. And so getting those artillery down, especially when my Dwarven artillery are level 9, I mean they just do so much damage for the gold that you put into them. And you can see here that I'm trying to macro Barasat again, but I'm unfortunately not able to macro him perfectly, and Escald freezes him just in the nick of time to where the dragon can then blow up my dragon, and I was cooked here. I thought I was done and there was no coming back, but luckily those barbarians were able to stall long enough for my Barasat to come back and clean up those troops. And I did say it was a Hall of Fame performance, so it wasn't perfect, but I think that's also important to note that you don't have to be perfect with these matches. It's just sometimes you have to stay consistent with it, and even if you do mess up and sometimes it doesn't work, I think it's worth giving it another try to see if it does work, because you never know if it was just a user mistake or if it was actually the strategy not working. I think Dwarven Artillery is easily the most underrated card in the game right now. If you're looking for an artillery to use and you have this at least level 7 to level 8, and you're at the beginning of Stadium, you should be using this in every game. Especially if you have something that can deal with air troops for your hero like Allura. I think this thing just does so much for the price that it costs, and you can see that the upgrade where it shoots rockets on the other side and stuns towers, if your opponent isn't using Battle Mecha, it's just way too strong. And when you have barbarians backing it up, it's almost unstoppable because the artillery will take care of those high HP troops, and the barbarians will take care of the stragglers that go by, including those high HP flying troops. And here you're about to see me do the Dissipate upgrade, except this time I'm actually able to pull it off and get those golems sent to the other side. And so while it was only one ice golem, you'll see here, unfortunately it did get that little guy. That one ice golem is huge for just tanking damage, and it's going to make it so that I have to deal less damage. And I think that that was part of the reason I was able to slip by and get a win with this one. And it may not seem that that was as big as a deal as I thought it was, but you'll see that he has so many troops going his way that even Escald can't slow things down because there's just so many high HP tanky golems going his way, and the glaciers aren't going to do anything to deal with that. That's where I think the artillery really come in clutch, because I see a lot of people using Glacier, but the Glacier just doesn't do that much damage. Yes, it's nice for slowing, but he wasn't able to actually kill that huge pack of mobs going his way, and so that's what ended up getting me the dub in this one. And I did have to let that dragon go on my side, but like I was saying in my previous videos, it's always better to let the high HP tanky troop leak than to have a small troop leak, because that tanky HP troop is still only worth 1 life. But I want to give a huge shout out to Castlefan here. These are some really fun matches to play against him with, and I definitely think it's fair to say that Escald is better than Barasat overall, but it's not impossible to win with him. So I'm going to leave you guys with this. Even if you're underleveled, and even if you don't have an overpowered dragon, keep grinding, because one day you will get there and you will be successful. You just have to put it to your mind. And with that being said, I'm going to drop a band on gems real quick. Nah, I'm playing. Alright, I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.